watching the Mystical Green Beanie.
Hey, what's going on, dudes and dudettes? I am the Mystical Green Beanie. Welcome to my Avengers Infinity War spoiler-filled best of worst of review. Spoiler-filled, as in this review will have spoilers in it. So I'm just letting you know that right off the bat, so you don't freak out in the comment section like, "Oh, you spoiled this movie." Yeah, I said so in the title. I said so in the beginning of the video. So, yeah. This is a movie I've been waiting 6 years to see. I know a lot of people are saying 10 years, but unless you guys knew something that I didn't, I had no idea that Thanos was going to be a villain until Avengers. So, yeah, but whatever. Regardless, here we are, and right out of the gate, I love this movie. It has problems. It does have its problems. But aside from a few fanboy issues that really just boil down to taste issues, I can't really think of many narrative problems that I have, because I think structurally this film is very sound. Anyways, let's just get right into it. And as always, starting off with my positives, let's talk about the things I did like. Let's talk about the best of. And starting off with Thanos, Thanos is amazing in this film. Now, I'm sure if you like Thanos in the comics, then you're going to be a little disappointed because he's a very different character in this film than he is in the comics. But I'm fine with it. A, because I'm not a huge fan of Thanos in the comics. I think he's a one-note villain that doesn't really work after Infinity Gauntlet. And B, this is one of those situations like General Zod from Man of Steel or General William Stryker from X2 X-Men United, where the endgame is the same, but the character motivation is very different and very unique to this film. So Thanos wants to kill half the universe because he sees overpopulation as a problem. It was an issue that destroyed his homeworld, and Thanos just doesn't want to see what happened to his people happen to the rest of the universe. In his mind, he's saving everyone. I also quite enjoyed Josh Brolin's performance. I thought he did a really good job in this film. Some of the CG on him is a little weird, and I'll talk about that later once I talk about the worst of. But I really liked Thanos in this movie as a villain. Again, motivation is completely different, which ultimately makes him Thanos in name only, but it works so well. Plus, I'm one of those guys who was freaking out that Thanos wasn't wearing his armor in the trailers for the movie, and I was really irritated by that, but given the context behind it, I like it a lot. Seriously, everything about Thanos just works in this movie, and I like it, and I'm talking in circles now, so I'm just going to move on. I also really enjoyed the fight sequences. The action in this film is very well choreographed and very well shot. There's some shaky cam here and there that I'm just not feeling at all because I don't like shaky cam outside of the Jason Bourne movies, but I thought all the others were handled brilliantly. My personal favorite has to be the second fight scene in New York, where it's Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Wong, and Spider-Man fighting the Black Order. I think it was like Ebony Maw and Supergiant. But yeah, that was really cool, and it felt very comic booky, and I mean, this whole film feels really comic booky, in the same way that, like, the Avengers feels like an Avengers book put on screen. This movie feels like a comic book event put on screen, but yeah, the action just lends itself to this movie really well, and I liked it a lot. Another thing that caught me was how this movie does not pull any punches. People die. Main characters die. And Thanos even says something along the lines of, "There's no coming back this time," which sets the tone of this film perfectly. Now, I don't think the characters who are wiped from existence are dead. I'm sure Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Groot, and Bucky, and all those other guys, they're fine. But Heimdall, and Loki, and Gamora, and all the characters who were viciously murdered on screen, they did. They're not coming back. It's over for them. And on that note, I have a story I want to tell you because it was really funny seeing people's reactions to that in my theater, but I'm going to hold that off for the end. This film is also very artsy, and we don't get a lot of comic book fans that are as artistic as this movie, and the ones that we do get, people usually don't like. But yeah, this was a very creative film, and I know I like to joke that Marvel makes two types of movies. They make generic McDonald's cannon fodder, which is only there to hype up Infinity War, and they make films. Like, honest-to-God films. And this was a film. Granted, it's part one of a two-part story, but that's fine. Now, this does mean that the next Avengers film will either make or break this film, because this film was a very, this was a setup film for what happens in the second part of the story. But in that regard, it did its job of hyping me up for the inevitable conclusion for this chapter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And trust me when I say this, I know you've been hearing this about every other Marvel movie that comes out, but this is the Empire Strikes Back of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But like, for real this time. And that's not hyperbole. I genuinely do believe that this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe equivalent to the Empire Strikes Back. Well, at least I think that in this moment, because I've gone back and watched some of my other reviews, and I'm either way too nice or way too harsh in a movie, and I just have that problem, but I don't think that's the case here. I genuinely do think that I'm going to feel the same way now that I feel... Wait, no, let me say that again. I genuinely think that I'm going to feel the same way, like, next week and next month that I feel now about this film. Also, there are shots in this movie that are just gorgeous and very weird and very anime inspired. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Thor temporarily kills Thanos, and Thanos goes to the spiritual realm, and he's talking to the soul of baby Gamora, and he's telling her that he has sacrificed everything to get where he is at this moment. And that scene was beautiful, and it reminded me a lot of Shinji's train of thought from Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm sure it's not a reference to that, but that's just what that scene reminded me of. But yeah, those were my biggest positives. Those are the big things that stood out to me in the theater. But now let's talk about the things that I maybe didn't like so much. Now let's talk about my negatives. Let's talk about the worst of. And starting this list off is the CG. Some of it is a little wonky, and the film is very inconsistent in that regard, because there are some shots that are marvelous, no pun intended, and then there are some scenes where I can still see the glowy, like, haze that separates the actors from the green screen behind them. So the CG is a little off. However, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The last two superhero movies that had good CGI were Man of Steel and The Wolverine. And the last film that had good CGI was Blade Runner 2049. But yeah, dude, that's just a problem that I have with superhero movies these days, and unfortunately, this movie was no exception. Then there's the problem of the Black Order. Now, let me just preface this by saying that I am not a huge fan of Jonathan Hickman's Infinity. I think it is fine, but nowhere near as good as people like to make it out to be. Personally, I think Secret Wars and his Fantastic Four are way better. That said, the Black Order, who are from Infinity, I believe, are some tough sons of bitches in that comic. And in the movie, they get their asses handed to them by Black Widow and Captain America and Falcon. I mean, Thor I can understand, because Thor is... he's Thor. But I mean, come on. Ebony Maw gets tricked into getting sucked into the vacuum of space by Iron Man and Spider-Man. I'm a Spider-Man fan, but like... that's lame. It doesn't break the movie for me. That's very clear, but it still sucks. Also, the Guardians of the Galaxy are really annoying in this movie. I mean, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe interpretation of the Guardians in the first place, but I really did not like them in this movie. And every terrible thing that happens in this movie is directly Star-Lord's fault, so if I didn't hate that character before, but yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I thought it was great. The story. Okay, so I'm watching the movie with a few friends of mine from work who all read comics, and we're watching this film, and then we get to the scene where Thanos wipes out half the universe, and everyone's favorite characters start dying, and I shit you not, people start screaming and crying in the theater. And my friends and I are looking at each other like, what the fuck is everyone crying about? Like, what? And then it hit us, a lot of these people who are watching this film aren't comic book readers. They're not used to this. Even though for us, the comic book fans, this is just an average Wednesday. One day you're just reading your comics and then, boop, my favorite character's dead. Guess I can drop the book for the next couple weeks until they come back. Because that's just a thing that happens in comics. Spoilers. Characters die and they come back. Comics. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Infinity War. I really like this movie, but what about you? What were your thoughts? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know down below in the comments section. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button, share, support the channel, and if you want to see more content like this, all you have to do is subscribe. I'm the Mystical Green Beanie. Thank you for watching, and as always, until next time, adios, nachos. Adios.